Chapter 7, Doubt. Well, just like normal, this was actually named something very different. But when it came down to naming Chapter 7, the only thing that fit was doubt. This chapter was very difficult for me to write, and actually this was one of the last chapters I wrote. I probably edited it a few times because I kept giving you guys my filtered version, and the Holy Spirit kept asking me to go deeper with you. The one thing I wasn't looking for 10 years ago was somebody to tell me it was just going to be okay. And I also wasn't looking to read another book about how somebody's life turned out perfect. It wasn't where I was. And so I didn't want this story, this book, to be that. I wanted you to see the hard stuff, because oftentimes we overlook the really difficult times and just go to the good stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to try my very best, because it's never ever easy to be really vulnerable, but I'm going to try. And the words that you read in chapter 7, I hope you read it more than once, because the pain that was written with each word, I would sit at my desk and I would weep. Because I remember her. And this book was written for the girl in chapter 7. And I hope that you can hear my heart in it. So, doubt. Here we are. Are you in a place where you hate your life? Where you feel dead? Where you don't know how God's ever going to redeem it? How could he ever take a life like yours and make it good at all? Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was a waste. I felt like I wasted everything he had given me. I was living in a literally one little bedroom of a house of a friend who was so gracious to bless me with out west, while my husband was engaging in an affair still and refused to live with me. And there I sat waiting, and I waited. And to be very honest, I had been fasting for months and months and months and months. So I was very, very little. I was literally probably 98 pounds, which normally I'm about 130, 134. And I'm not too tall. So I'm not tiny little toothpick, but I'm definitely not 98 pounds. I think that I was that in like 4th grade, but not as a grown woman. And at this point in time, I felt I was working a job I hated just to make my ends meet. And I lived with my 2 dogs and whatever I could have fit in my car in this little room that wasn't mine, with a family that I loved but wasn't my family. And I was waiting for something to change, anything. And at that moment, it was my birthday month, November, and it was wonderful. Normally, November is my very favorite, and it was snowing, and it was just, pouring snow, because we were out west, and it's the fluffy kind of snow. And I had already had multiple conversations where every day was something different with my ex-husband. One day we were okay and we were moving forward with progress, and the next day I was hated and not loved, and I was listening to him tell somebody else that he loved them. So it was insanely emotionally, mentally, physically draining. And I look back and I honestly don't even know how in the world I did it besides the strength of God. But there was, my birthday had arrived, and I love my birthday. In fact, I'm releasing my book on my birthday, which is why you get this present. But I love my birthday. I always have. My mom and dad did an amazing job being able to celebrate each of their children so well. And my mom was a gift giver, and so was my dad. And they just lavished us with lovely things. Like, they just loved us, and we knew it. And when I was home one day, my ex-husband had come to give me a gift, and I was very excited because I thought, he thought of me. It's amazing. Because at that point in time, I didn't even think he thought of me. And by the way, I have had long hair my entire life. And at this point in time, I had shaved the whole side of my head right here. It was probably about 1 inch. And then I had about this length. So it came to about here and slid down. So you would not recognize me at all. And I was very skinny. So I had this super like retro cute haircut, and I was tiny, 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 and not in a healthy way and not in a cute way. And I say that because I didn't recognize myself often. I would literally pass by a mirror and forget it was my reflection. And I know it sounds silly, but it's true. And if you've ever had a dramatic haircut, like, it went from this to short. So it was very dramatic for me. And it was also something I did prior to knowing that my ex-husband was going to be leaving me. So all that happened with a physical transformation as well. And when I would go to church, people wouldn't know who I was. So it was very hard. And I had him, he had come over, he brought over this present, and I had opened it, and it was this super cute jacket, and it's really cold. And so I was very excited to wear it. Tried it on. It was super cute, really bright yellow, and actually not this yellow. It was like a mustard sort of yellow, but very bright for me. And I have not always loved neutral colors, but I do now. But it was this yellow jacket, and it just popped. And with my short haircut, it was very fun. And I was very grateful, and I was very excited. And I thought, oh my goodness, yay, he brought me something. And then proceeded to tell me about how he had asked for help in the store and just said, pick something out, please. And not that it was probably just a guy thing, but it hurt because I really wanted something sentimental to make sure that he was thinking of me, because I was so not thought of and everything we were going through. And I didn't say anything, and he left, and I said thank you, and he left. And later that afternoon, no one was home, and I was in the hallway, and I was standing in front of the mirror, and I put on my yellow jacket, and I buttoned it up, and I tied it at the waist, and it was super cute. And I stood and I looked in the mirror, and as I gazed at the person, somebody else gazed back. It was not me, you guys. I had no life in my eyes, no life in my skin, no life at all left in me. And in that moment, I died. I completely collapsed inside, and I knew that I didn't want to live anymore the way that I was living. And I couldn't take one more disappointment, no matter how big or how small. I couldn't do one more day of not being wanted. So if you've ever felt unwanted, I promise you, you're not alone. I have been there, my friend. And there will come a time when enough is enough, and you are either going to fight or you're not. And I wish I could sit here and tell you that the enemy, like I write in my book, I wish I could tell you the enemy didn't take me out, but he did. And I shrunk back. I exited ministry. I exited everything that I had ever loved, stopped doing anything. I stopped talking to people, and I asked my dad to come move me back home because I couldn't do one more day. I knew that I would die, spiritually or physically. And so, without ado, as daddies do, my dad flew out to where I was, packed up my stuff in a U-Haul, and hauled me back home, to their home where it all kind of had began in the cabin. And I proceeded to live with my family for a while I got help with counseling and things like that. But really where the ugly part came out, because the second that I left, I was told that it was my fault that my marriage was going to fail because I left. And that was a lie from the pit of hell, and it hurt. And it was almost like the enemy dug in one more time and ripped me wide open, because I got home to my parents' house, and instead of feeling secure, I felt like a failure. I was drowning, and I remember sitting in the chair, gazing out my mom's window and looking at the river, because my parents live on a river, thinking, how could my life, I did it all right. How could I be sitting here with it all gone wrong? How is God ever going to redeem this? I want to die. I hate my life. I hate this situation. I hate what has happened. I hate that the enemy won, I felt like. I hate that he stole everything that I cared about. I hate that he stole my dreams. I hate that he stole my husband. I hate that he stole my life. I hate that he stole that I could live out west. I hate that he stole all these things, and I was so mad. And it broke me, y'all. For a year, I didn't say anything. Like, I would sit at family gatherings silent. I would hide. I would withdraw. I stopped working with people because I did not even want to talk. And I went and worked with dogs, and I fell in love with animals. And I started working with animals, which is also why I want to do a hobby farm, because I have never experienced something so amazing in my life as watching an animal become my companion, and my dog sit next to me while I would cry and make me feel wanted. And it was amazing, and it is truly healing. And so I worked with dogs, and there was a good year where I would, 2 times a week, I would drive to therapy, and I would work through my stuff, and I learned a lot about myself and my desires, and I learned a lot about who God really was, and not just who I thought he was, and the truth of the Bible. And I learned about the truth of divorce in Christian marriages, and the truth is, it's really, really rampant, and the enemy has no new lies. And if we listen to them and we allow him to creep in, and we don't take action and actually sit in the word and sit with our creator, like, the enemy is gonna lie to us, and he won't stop. He doesn't stop. But either does God, and God has already won. But none of that I didn't feel any of that in this chapter. And so whenever you think about this book, I want you to know that I didn't write this to only give hope. I feel like God inspired me to write this for the one that doesn't want to go to church, the one that doesn't want to leave their room, the one that feels so desperate and alone that they don't want to see people. And I hope you pick up this book because I pray it changes your life and you see that you're not alone. And I hope that you see the redemption and you don't get stuck at the very beginning in your despair. because God is a redeemer. You may not feel that, and it may not look like it, but that's who you serve. And you never stop serving him because he is faithful. When I can wipe my tears. Thanks for letting me be real, you guys. That's what Rescue, Redeemed, and Restored is about, is me being real with you. So I asked God to never let me sway from who I am. And this is me, and I am an emotional person, plus I'm really pregnant. But this is really my heart. This is really who I am. So it took me a long time to get her. So I hope that you see she's real. I'm going to read you on page 76. I imagine Joseph felt the same anger when he was thrown into prison, just getting over his first trauma of being rejected and thrown into the well as a devastating process. And now he was thrown into prison for a false accusation. As I sat in my car that day, I felt like Joseph, rejected over and over again. I felt as though I was doing time for someone else's crime. Thankfully, I serve a God who knows just how that feels, taking the punishment for someone else's offense. God saw Joseph in the well and prison, and he saw me that day in my parents' cabin, and that moment in my car. Not for one moment did God overlook Joseph's pain or mine. He doesn't overlook yours either. I speak to you blessing, that every day forward, that you will know you are not alone, and that you can do this not through your own strength, but through God. The questions that I have written at the end of this chapter, there's 4 of them. So here they go. How can you shift your focus from your current situation and focus more on God? It's really important that in our pain, we don't only give our attention to our pain. We need to focus our attention on God, and a great way to do that is worship. I used to just put on worship, whether I was falling asleep. That doesn't mean that you feel like jumping up and down, but it does mean that it is like I would constantly have it going so that I could hear truth and focus on him. 2, who are the people you can let in to walk alongside of you? We kind of addressed this in the last chapter, but I want you to do it again, because you'll either see that it's the same people or God's revealing somebody else to you. 3, list 3 practical things you can do to take better care of yourself. 4, what are the doubts you are struggling with? Doubt is real, and it is a very dangerous place to get trapped. So I pray that you don't get trapped there. I want you to move forward, and I'm excited for you to jump through to what the second half of Rescue, Redeemed, and Restored is, because now that he is redeeming you, he is going to restore you. And I told you I didn't want to write this only to say, hey, it's going to be great at the end. But the truth is, it does get better at the end. So I'm excited to see you guys in chapter 8. Thanks.